You are listening to the WW Phil podcast, your guide to feel good. Phil is an everyday guy who wanted to feel good. Thanks for listening to today's episode. Now let's join our host Phil for today's conversation about wellness and feeling good.
Hey family, it's time for another episode. Tonight's guest, a super special guest from across the pond. Yes, Rachel from London has joined us. We're going to listen to our conversation now. Enjoy. Hey, well, I'm so excited you're here. How are you?
It's so great to be here, Phil. Thank you. Really exciting.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting this situation as we have changed our world. Being a little bit more virtual and seeing each other on the screen has come more of a normal thing. And so I know we tried to do this a while back, but our time frames are different. I don't know if everyone knows who you are, but you're actually in Europe. So you're in the UK, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Cool deal. So thanks for joining. A lot of people, I think, in my estimation, have crossed over the pond and started to share with each other on Instagram and that kind of stuff. But I've been inspired by your journey for a long time. So you're also a fellow WW UK ambassador, so that's pretty cool. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But anyway, I always like to start all of these with kind of the same format, and that is kind of tell me how you came to know about WW and how you came to think that, man, I think WW could help me be well and that kind of stuff. So let's start from there.
Yeah, sure. So I've been a member for just over 2 years now. And it was one of those moments after Christmas, the classic, I get on the scales and I see a figure that I've not seen before. I just think I've got out of that. I've got too far to be able to bring myself back. I can't really remember a time where I haven't been on a diet of some sort. But I think the difference was I was trying to do things myself and fad diets, if you like, that just weren't sustainable in the long term. And I think I realized that I needed a proper program, something that could really work for me. And that's when I just looked up WW, which was Weight Watchers at the time. And I'd heard loads about it, but hadn't ever sort of delved into it. And I think that was just the vibe around it. It wasn't for my age or things like that. I had those misconceptions in the beginning, so I just thought give it a go, and that's when I looked it up in that January, and that's where it started really, and I haven't looked back.
Wow, that's amazing. So what were some of the things that were going on in your life back in the day that you said? I mean, obviously you said it was kind of a number on the scale, you didn't like that number, but what else was going on in your life back then?
I think I had a really bad relationship with food. I would try and restrict myself from eating certain things, cheese being one of them, bread being another. And the more I said I can't eat it, the more I wanted it. And then that would lead to a binge, if you like, of not just one piece of toast, but 12 pieces. And it was that restriction that was making me want it more. And also, I didn't have any sort of relationship with exercise. Even if I walked, it would get me out of breath, I'd get hot, and I just wasn't interested in any activity. So I think those two things, obviously quite important for this, that I had no sort of interest in, education on, and as a result, my mindset, I was so unhappy, but I just kept sort of pushing it further and further away. I wasn't looking after myself.
Okay, that's cool. So what I'm always like to dig into kind of what's going on with people's their kind of their heart and how they see themselves and that kind of stuff. Because I mean, was it a period of time where you kind of can go back now and see that you had kind of neglected yourself over time? Whereas if you had thought about yourself the way you think about yourself now, maybe you would have not gotten to that point. What was the slide that allowed you to let yourself go until that point?
Yeah, that's spot on. The way I think now is totally different, and I remember just so well getting to the end of the year, which would have been 2017, and rather than do something about it, I just kept buying bigger clothes. And I spent so much money on buying bigger clothes. And I remember vividly, and this is the one item that I've kept, this whole journey is I was in the changing room with a friend, and she said, I was trying on a skirt. She said, let me get you the bigger size. And I said, no, I'm not getting any bigger size. And I was squeezing myself into the skirt, and it didn't fit. I know it didn't fit. I didn't feel comfortable in it. And I look back, I have that piece of, I have that skirt now as that visual that I can see the difference between then and now. But rather than address it at the time again, I just would buy these bigger clothes. And it's sad now. I've given them all to the charity shop. But rather than actually address why I was getting those bigger clothes, I just did it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So was there a difference in like what was the difference in what you changed in your food? Like if you look at your food prior and your food now, you talked about the restriction and that kind of stuff. Obviously now you can live a life without restriction. It's all controlled by mindset. But what was the major change in what you were eating in types of food and maybe quantity of food compared to what you eat now?
Yeah, so I think it was a mixture of both. The portion sizes was a massive thing in the beginning. I remember having cereal at one stage and measuring out the portion size as WW suggest. And what I was eating before was 7 times the amount that they suggest. So, and I just thought that's cereal, So that was a real lesson around portions. And like you said, what stuck with me is that nothing is off the menu. There is no restriction, nothing's off limits. I can eat everything I like, but it's that balance and that moderation. And I suppose compromise. If I want to have the cheese that I love so much, that's fine. But then the rest of the day, I would have, those 0 point foods, and I'd turn to the fruits and the veg and the protein rather than, more of the same of what I used to eat. So it's that kind of, that balance. I've learned about balance.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think one thing for sure that WW does with everybody is it gives you the empowerment to make a change, but also kind of creates a lot of strategy where you can do this successfully by building healthy habits, and then also successfully by having a very logical prefrontal cortex planned out thing that you can do. I think a lot of us come to the table with maybe things that hold us up because of our emotions. And if we can separate how we eat from our emotions, and that all comes back to having a plan and being able to look and assess your situation and just determine that, am I hungry or am I just trying to meet a need? Because I truly believe that every type of behavior is some sort of unmet need. So you figure out what the need is, and maybe that need is not always food. And if it's not always food, and we can fulfill that need with something other than just what is supposed to sustain us, then maybe it's a phone call to a friend, or like you say, learning that activity or whatever that'll actually moves your body, and see if that can make that feeling go away and then fill that gap. So what about the journey as you, let's talk about food for a little bit more, and then I want to talk about how you started to fill the gap with activity. But like, what for you was that kind of eye-opening moment per se that said, okay, this right here needs to be just a tool, a sustenance food tool for me to eat, and separate that part where it says that I'm satisfying my emotions with this food? Because I know it was a big thing for me. When I started to break that relationship, it really allowed my success to really kind of ramp up. And for me, there was a big period of time where I had to kind of just say food is in this window. It's very regimented, and I eat this at this time, I eat this at this time, at this time. And it was very kind of same and repetitive. And what that allowed me to do is build good healthy habits in how much I needed to eat, kind of bring in the how much. And then I can change out the pieces. If I have 7 points allotted for breakfast, then I can change that out with lots of different things, especially if I filter in lots of zeros and that kind of thing. But so what was your strategy on like making that change and kind of walking away from a little bit of the emotional side?
Yeah, so I think there's that difference between conscious and subconscious, unconscious eating, where you just grab something for the sake of it, just because you think you're hungry, but it's that conscious choice. So when I feel like I'm hungry and I shouldn't because I've had my meal, or it's almost like snack time, I drink a lot more water now. So I then kind of hydrate myself and then assess whether I was actually hungry or whether it was just thirst. So I'm drinking a lot more water than I ever did. And I guess slightly different to what you said your strategy was, is that I never feel hungry now because I feel like I'm constantly eating, but I'm eating the right things. So I never get to that hunger of, oh, I'm just going to fill my boots kind of thing. I'm snacking on fruit and veg, eating a lot of eggs. And so if I feel hungry, I've already got that pineapple chopped up in the fridge that I can go and grab rather than turning to unhealthy treats, for example. So it's just that always keeping in control of what you're doing and planning far more. I guess if I go right back to the beginning, I never used to really cook anything. I would
Yeah.
always grab and go. So that doesn't help. So I've had that epiphany of, if you cook from scratch, you you know what you're eating, you know how to point it, and actually it's really exciting and really enjoyable cooking and finding new recipes that then you go back to. And you've got so many cookbooks, and on the app there's loads of recipes that you never need to be bored or in the eat the same things over and over again.
Yeah.
There's so much out there. So I think that's a real strategy, is what can I cook next, and then you fit your points around that.
Absolutely. And I think there's also a far-reaching component of that is when you actually take the time to do that for yourself, there's like an emotional gratification of saying, man, I did this for me. And really that is the groundwork for you being able to show up for yourself in a lot of different ways. You show up for yourself at the scale and you have a loss, but you show up for yourself when you actually complete your workout. You show up for yourself when you cook food. You show up for yourself when you don't talk negative to yourself and that kind of thing. Has there been a shift in how you speak to Rachel when you see her in the mirror or when you see her and that kind of stuff?
There's definitely uh, more of an appreciation for the body now. I obviously love it more because I look after it better.
Yeah.
And it's that healthy, happy feeling that you get from the fact that you've actually looked after yourself, and you feel proud of that. And don't get me wrong, there are days where I look in the mirror and think, you're disappointed with what you did yesterday or how you've acted over a holiday or something like that, and you go back to those negative thoughts. But what you have to remember is, one bad day isn't going to mean a whole bad week, and one bad week isn't going to take you back to the beginning. You're never going to feel the way you did on day one when you made the decision to start this journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
So let's talk about this, and then I'm going to keep pushing on activity because I know that's a big deal to you. So tell me this: what did it mean when you got? I'm guessing it either came by an email or it came by an Instagram DM when you got a little message from www.uk, and it
yeah,
said,
that was
"We
right.
want to talk to you." What did that mean to you?
Yeah, that meant a lot because for the first 4 months of my journey, I did everything how, by the book, I suppose, and I was seeing those losses, and then life happened, as it does, and I started gaining again, and I was very frustrated with myself. I knew how it had happened, but I got into bed that evening and I was scrolling through Instagram, and I thought, hey, why don't I do an Instagram to keep myself accountable? It works for all these people. They're inspiring me. I could do the same. And so for 3 months, I genuinely did it as a way to keep responsibility of what I was doing. But it was so lovely to get that message from WW saying, actually, you're now inspiring other people just the way that I had been. So it felt really great that I'd done something for me that has helped others, and to get that, I suppose, recognition. But equally, it didn't change anything because I wanted to carry on that way and get more involved with the community. So it was lovely.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I I totally am in awe in the fact that the person that I was a couple of years ago now gets to do all the things that I do, not because I've been given permission or nothing like that, but only because I showed up for myself for a long period of time, and now I get to be blessed by the things I get to do. It is totally a blessing for me to share these words and inspire other people, and to be able to use the knowledge that I have and that kind of stuff. And I think that's really how most ambassadors over here are, mostly probably over there as well. That it's just a blessing to share our story because, for one, you just believe in it so much, and you believe that when you show up for yourself, that it is a natural fruit for you to be able to want to give that back to as many people as possible and help them, because it really is liberating to be able to show up for yourself and do that. And when you learn that that no one can do it for you, you can be inspired to the hilt, but you have to show up and do that for yourself. So tell me how and in what way did it walk into your life for you to become the fitness guru that you are? Like, everyone sees all your workout videos, and like, I know there's got to be a ton of people over there that are saying, I'm doing your workouts, I'm doing your workouts, they're working for me, and that kind of stuff. So tell me about that. How does that feel for you?
That's a lovely feeling when people say, did you work out this morning, or have you got a new one you could share, or I've hurt my ankle, can you suggest something I can do without weight bearing? And it's just, I think what my family and friends find so funny is that, as I said before, I would avoid exercise, like, really avoid it. And I just remember one morning thinking, I've got the food sorted, I know what I'm doing, and obviously WW can work just with the food. But it was just that I wanted to push myself that bit further, and I guess, like you said, show up for myself and see what I can do. So it started off 15 minutes a day, a HIIT workout, high intensity, and it showed that all the excuses I used to make of, oh, I've got no time or I'm not interested, were thrown out of the window, because 15 minutes is not a lot of time, but what you can get out of it is fantastic. And when you go through it and you're building up that sweat and you're in a bit of pain because you're exerting yourself, it's nothing in comparison with when you finish and you think, good on you, give yourself a pat on the back, I've completed it. You feel great, you feel more energetic, you then, it has that knock-on effect of what you want to eat for the rest of the day, because you feel healthier. You want to fill your body with healthy things. So it started off from there, and then I spent, I guess, a year just going around different places in London that were doing some really cool stuff, boxing, cycling, rowing, dancing, more of those intensity cardio circuit kind of things, swimming, just trying loads of different stuff, because I realized that you don't have to do the same all the time, and not everything works for everyone. You've got to find what you enjoy. So I really enjoyed that kind of sussing out, and now I know that circuit training and weightlifting and high intensity is what I love, and it doesn't become a chore now. Whereas I used to see exercise as something I should do or have to do, now I look forward to it, and the endorphins that I get, and building my own workouts now to share with others is great. And now I've got this drive. I'm training to be a personal trainer, and it's worlds apart from where I used to be. So it's all these healthy habits building up and taking me further.
Yeah, that's got to make you feel so proud. And what I love about your approach and stuff, and having watched several of your videos and that kind of stuff, is that quick kind of get in, get out mentality, which is the same thing I have. When I did this whole journey, and I just started like a month and a half before you. I started November the 28th, 2017. And my first year, I didn't work out at all. I didn't start working out until December of 2018. And I started at really high weight, 396, and I had to lose 100 pounds. And then I just decided when I hit that number, I was going to start working out. But I didn't want to jump into the gym and start doing something that wasn't sustainable. So I decided I'd go to this gym, and I was going to go do a trainer one time a week, and then I would go to a gym a couple of other times a week, and 3 would be enough for me. And I didn't want it to go to the gym for like an hour. I just wanted to do 30 minutes. And I was like, if I do that and I consistently do that, if I ever wanted to add on to it, I could. But if I start out with like saying I'm going to go 5 times a week and then I fail 3 times a week, well, ultimately I've only gone 2 now. And I talked myself out of going probably another one. So I end up maybe only going once. So if I set, that perfect number for me at 3, and I've been really good at doing that. And that first year of changing that behavior, I went 136 times to the gym. So it was, I went from 0 to 136, and that was because I set it at a sustainable number for me to go that number of the year. And when I go, I typically do these kind of high intensity rounds where I either do it 2 ways. Like, one is either in kind of like boxing with 3-minute rounds and then 45 seconds off, and then 3-minute round, 45 seconds off, and I do that 4 times. Or I do 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off for 9 straight minutes. And I
Wow.
love those rounds. So like, and I've posted some videos of those, and those are hard. Like you just do as many reps as you can in 20 seconds. And when it dings, you just rest for 10 seconds and then move on to the next one. And it's so fun, and it gets your heart rate going, and it stays so consistent pumping. And then I just ride the bike for a little bit when I'm done, and I'm out of there in like 20 minutes or 25 minutes, and I'm back at home at work, and I can do it in the middle of the day, take a little break.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a really crucial thing, because it's really easy, especially when you're really large or really unhealthy and your body's not ready to it or used to it. Like, you pushing yourself now might look totally different than it did 2 years ago. So you
Definitely.
push yourself extra hard now because you got the skill. And I'm the same way. Like, I went back to the gym a couple of weeks ago, and like, I'm still able to do, even though I haven't worked out near as much during this pandemic, I'm still working out at home and doing that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
I realize now that my minimum now is like light years ahead of where my maximum was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I feel like that we really do learn day by day, step by step. The same way with food, how controlled you can be is that we can do hard things. Like, well, how did you come to that realization that, man, I can do that, and that looks scary, but now I'm really good at that?
Yeah, I guess it's that, like you said, building up over time, and finding something that's sustainable for you. So not, like you said, it's that goal setting. You don't ever want to set something that's unrealistic. You've got to start slow, because all those mini milestones are just as important as the goals that you want to achieve in the end.
Yeah.
So it's like, whilst someone said to me before, oh, I want to work out my back muscles so they look like yours. And I thought, that's really weird. I've never looked at my back muscles. I've never even thought about them. But it's
Yeah.
these things that happen whilst you're doing something that you're focused on, that happen as a byproduct. And then you kind of look at your whole body and think, okay, I couldn't do those sorts of squats before. I couldn't pick up those weights. I had no idea what to do in a gym. You'd walk in, you'd see everything everywhere. You'd be intimidated and walk out. It's that little bit of learning that you learn from number of trainers, number of gyms over the time, or from YouTube, or from anything that you pick up, and then you realize that actually over time you're building that strength, so you feel more confident to try new things. And in that time, you didn't realize you had strength in your legs or your back, or that you did, and that can push you. And especially then when you're doing your cardio, high intensity things, you can go push yourself harder because you've got that muscle and strength behind you, but you haven't explicitly looked to do your back or something. It's just it happens over time when you become more confident with what you're doing. And
Yeah.
like you said, your maximum then becomes your minimum as you go on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've said this too before to somebody, and it's kind of funny when you think about it this way. When you go into the gym, there's a lot of people, especially WW people, that are probably intimidated and that kind of stuff. And maybe you've been doing WW for 6 months or whatever when you decide to go to the gym. So you've got a little bit of success under your belt. Maybe you only lost 25 pounds or whatever. And you can look and you can see somebody across the gym, and comparison. Like, I love the quote by our former president, Teddy Roosevelt: the comparison is the thief of joy. Like, there's no reason to compare yourself to anyone. That you don't even have to compare yourself to yourself. You still are yourself. You can just make yourself a better version of it. But anyway, so the interesting part is, and I love when you kind of extrapolate this and think about it, is you see somebody who's so fit, and you think about, man, they can do things that I can't do. But you, over the last 6 months, have lost 27 pounds. You can do something they can't do. You want to ask them how hard they're going to have to work out to lose 27 pounds? They're going to have to kill themselves. And you did it all with your mind, right?
Yeah.
So you can do hard things. And like, that's the thing, is like, you don't have to come in and think you need to make your body look like that. You have to just come in and be who you are. And you just have to empower yourself that if I can lose weight by controlling my mind and moving my body some. I said this a long, long time ago when I very first started the journey. This is a quote I came up with in my meeting. I said, I move some now so I can move more later. And that's it. Yeah. So I always ask people that are real big on movement, like, how does it affect you when you can't? Like, if you just, this happened and this happened today and I don't get my movement in, how does that affect your day, and what kind of steps can you put in place to help you from getting off track?
Yeah, so it's that emotional thing. As I said, I now look forward to it. I don't see it as, I have to do it or I should do it.
Mhm.
It's more like something I like to do. So I want to fit it in. And, if I don't, for some reason, I won't throw caution to the wind and then just eat everything in sight because it's a bad day. I will just, you know, stay on track. I'll try and maybe go for a walk or move, within reason.
Mhm.
Hey, I want to jump in here for just a second and take a pause, and we'll hear from one of our sponsors. Thank you for joining us. We'll be right back.
Now, a message from our partners.
Hey, family, have you heard about my friend Lindsay? Yeah, the WW Pound Dropper. She is amazing. She's a wife and a mom of 3 amazing kiddos. And after a diagnosis of a life-threatening disease, she knew she really needed to make some changes to her approach in both food and in the kitchen cooking. So, after losing over 80 pounds on WW, which is amazing, for her, the recipe that got it all started, her 0 Point Plain Jane cheesecake. Those Greek yogurt cheesecakes, they're yummy. They are a staple of hers and mine. She now has endless recipes of all types, really, from stroganoff to chocolate no-bake cookies, from plain Jane cheesecake to sausage and cheese biscuits, and literally everything in between. The Pound Dropper Tribe is active and they are a force. So you should join us. And if you want to, you can find Miss Lynn's at thepounddropper.com or on Instagram at www.pounddropper.
Now back to our host, WW Phil.
Now we're back. Yeah. So
Yeah.
last year you broke your foot, and I remember you called it like hoot and boots. It was hilarious. Hoot and boot or something.
Yeah, and I just tried to not let that get me down, because it was really easy for me to think that it was going to bring me back to the beginning and I wasn't moving as much. But 2 things I had to remember is, one, I started my journey without moving that much and it still
Yeah.
was great just with the food. And secondly, there are other things that you can do. So I found workouts to do, for my abs, that I didn't have to bear weight on my foot or sit on a chair, or just stretching. So there are always going to be alternatives, just like, as people, we're all individual and our preferences are different, so you've got to find what suits you that you will enjoy. So yeah, it definitely affects my mind when I can't sort of break that sweat or get that movement on, but that doesn't mean the whole day is ruined. And you've got your other tools, you've got your mind, you've got your food, you can still crack on with WW.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think it's empowering when you get to the point you realize that any value that you accept on WW is one that you give it. You empower it and you can take it away. So if it means something to you, then you put all the gas in it. That's why you say you can have pizza and it's okay. And you determine that even though it's high points, I'm going to say I need this for today. Or you can also be the same thing and say, oh, that's a little too high points and I don't want that, but that's okay. And I always say that that's navigating safely between that moment where you have regret or shame and this little valley that you're walking through. Like, I don't want to go through this interaction and walk away feeling shame because I ate too much or I ate the wrong thing, or I don't want to walk away from the same interaction saying that, well, now I regret that I didn't do that, or feeling that regret, and just making sure that you assign the value of that. Is that an empowering moment for you to be able to live
That's
that way?
Yeah, massive. And an example of that is, not long ago, actually, I had an incident with some Jaffa cakes. And before I knew it, I'd eaten 20. Hadn't thought about it. The whole pack and the rest had gone. I hadn't enjoyed it because I hadn't really tasted them. They'd gone in and that was that. And I felt that guilt. I felt that, just, why did I do that? I didn't even enjoy it. But on the other side of that, you know, birthday, for example, or an occasion, or even some days where I'm just like, I just want to enjoy this. If I've empowered myself to say, you're going to enjoy this today, especially when it comes to anything chocolate orange, I will enjoy it. I don't feel that guilt afterwards because I've worked hard 6 other days of the week. I
Yeah,
deserve to enjoy this. So it's just that empowering of your mind first, whether you're consciously choosing to enjoy something or whether you're doing it because your emotion gets over. And it links back to what you were saying earlier. And then you feel that shame because you didn't enjoy it.
yeah. Yeah, and there's something about being able to assign that value and say, I never did enjoy that anyway. Like, why was I eating that? And I tell people all the time, especially new people, it's like, don't ever eat a bite of anything that you don't like. There's no reason to waste calories on eating something you don't like. If you don't like it, if you despise corn, don't eat corn just because it's a
Yeah.
vegetable and it's a zero. Don't eat zeros because you don't like them. Eat them because you enjoy them. And
Yeah.
that way you start to learn that healthy habit of assigning the value. And what's the great part is that stretches way beyond food. And that's why I say that, being overweight is a symptom of what's going on in our life. And food is something we have to have. So we might as well check the box and say, I don't need to solve all my food problems. I have to figure out my me problems, and then food will fix itself.
Yes.
I don't have a problem with uh, whatever I mean, I hate even like saying the name of a food because it's not a food problem. It is just move this over here and let me fix this. So what do you feel like now that you've kind of gone in a little while? If you were kind of circling back and saying to some newbies, like, obviously you have to start with food. You don't walk into this with any dreams or hopes of saying, I'm going to fix my mindset and then I'll be good. That is something you have to learn. And WW does a great job of empowering us and giving us the tools. But I say that all the time, that you have to find that level below the empowerment that they give us. Obviously, there's people in life that will go and they'll start with change. They have no empowerment. They're saying, I'm going to change this behavior, but they don't have the empowerment. WW gives us the empowerment, and that's a good foundation for that change. But below that, I always believe, and WW would call this your why, like that connection to yourself, that thing that says, this is why I'm doing it. What is Rachel's why? Like, why, when you've learned this habit and you've drilled in and said, this is the safe thing that holds this whole thing together, what is that for you?
I think it's that going back to that nothing is off the menu, in that, I can still eat what I like.
Yeah.
It's just within moderation. And I always say to people when they're starting, you should never label a food as bad and good, because that, if you eat what we would say, I don't know, a bad food, let's say chocolate, people
Mhm.
would say that, high in sugar, blah blah blah, but actually it's not with WW, because you can fit that in. Just in the same way, if you think of an apple as good, well, it's only as good if you don't eat 25 in a sitting. So it's not thinking good and bad, it's just what do you want and how can you fit that within your realm, kind of thing. And it's also always being kind to yourself, and you know not not compartmentalizing food in that kind of reward. You should be rewarded by it, you need it to live, but it's like you want to enjoy what you eat. And this is why I think WW is so great, because I don't have that bad relationship with a fad, unsustainable diet. This is
Mhm.
a lifestyle change now. I will never, my why was in the beginning to get like healthier and feel happier about myself. But although there's always a why that I'm always thinking, yes, I don't want to go back to where I was so unhappy, it's now a lifestyle change. I'm not going to be getting off this journey anytime soon. I'm not going to, because I don't see it as a restrictive diet. There's no need to. I'm not going to get to goal and then think, oh, well, I'm sorted now. It's going to be something that I will do for life, because I've got those healthy habits. And that's what it is. It's that healthy part, not, not that trying to berate myself, or
Yeah.
healthy view.
Yeah, yeah, there's a reason that really healthy people stay really healthy. It's because they have healthy habits. So as we build those healthy habits into our unhealthy selves, we do walk ourselves so far away from those old ways that we can say, I will never go back, because I have so many things in my life now that I've changed that doesn't even fit anymore. Like me living my life out of gas station food and convenience store food, I'm not going back to that, because I've changed so many habits that I recognize that if I did that 2 times in one day, that would be weird or odd behavior, and be like, hey, I don't need to do that. You don't need that. The ability to actually say those words, you don't need that, and accept that, is next level in the aspect of before I could go that and go to the gas station and go to the gas station again and never even remember that I went to the gas station. There was a period of time where I went and looked in kind of like the bank account where I had done these little pay at the gas station things for food, and I was like, whoa, I went to the gas station a lot, and that's kind of eye opening. And I still make stops and stuff like that, but if I do, I get different things. I buy lots of fruit, and I drink. I don't, my personal habit is to not drink any calories and that kind of thing. So how have you fit this kind of real time into your everyday? Like, this is how we do it. How do you actually approach food? Now, we haven't really necessarily talked about specific food. So how do you approach tracking, and how do you approach your actual habits of that kind of stuff?
So I'm still very much track every day. Obviously, there are times where you just don't, but on the whole, I do. It keeps me in control. I like seeing having that record, I suppose. And I think on a daily basis, it's good just so you can see what you're up to. But on a weekly basis, when you step on the scales, you can reflect back on your week. And if it's written down and recorded, you can say, okay, that's maybe why I didn't get the loss I expected, or that's why I gained. And if you're honest with yourself, you're then going to be able to reflect better. And so yeah, I do keep a track, and I do keep a track that on my Instagram, just because when I have to show up to someone else, I'm showing up for myself, kind of thing. And yeah, I generally try and roll over points as I can for special occasions, just because then I can enjoy myself even more at the weekends. At this point in time, getting through a day in this pandemic is great if I haven't gone over, so I'm not beating myself up too much. But yeah, I just try and keep that, unless I'm on a holiday, I'm not going to be so rigid, but otherwise day-to-day life, it's just keeping track, really. And over time, I've learned the points values of things. I don't need to look up so much, but it's still amazing sometimes when you think in your head, no matter how many times you've tracked it before, it's better just to write it down. You'll forget otherwise. So I think that's something I will just continue to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that the tracking will always do, and why it is a sustainable behavior, is because it keeps us from having to have that moment where you are negotiating with yourself on, wait, I ate that earlier, but I didn't track it. If I don't track it, I still have the points. Now I can track this. So like, it's that ongoing conversation of like, what did I really eat that much? Or maybe I only ate this many It's like, I know if I'm having these conversations with myself, then there's a lot of people that are having those conversations, and you're trying to do this fictitious math problem in your head to make it work. And I think, for one, the system in an overall sense has way more tolerance and grace for us to be able to still lose weight and stay sustainable. That's why we have this huge healthy eating zone of negative over here, under, and over +8. I mean, like, there's such a wide range right there that you can land in, 6 out of 7 days and continually lose weight. Because the human body is really resilient. It doesn't naturally shut itself down because we have one bad meal, nor is it perfectly in tune because you ate 7 great meals. We have to do the behavior for the long term. So are there specific foods that you just have to have? I mean, are you an egg connoisseur, or are there other things that for you are like your staple?
Yeah, I don't go a day without eating eggs.
Yeah.
In some shape or form. I just love them. Boiled eggs, poached eggs, in an omelette, frittata, obviously in a cake as well. But I try and use them either for breakfast or as a snack. So that's really helpful. And like I said, I've got this new relationship with fruit and veg. There are so many fruits that I never used to even think about, especially like pineapple, mango, that taste so great, but I just didn't factor them in. And now it's actually feels enjoyable to eat those. And it's almost like I always think of it as you're eating goodness. And say I've come back from, I don't know, one time I remember coming back from a festival where it's very difficult to find totally healthy things. You can get healthier choices, but coming back and having a plate of veg was just such a dream, because you feel that you're eating that goodness. So I definitely at least 5 fruit and veg a day is really important to me. And yeah, but then on the other hand, I always make sure I eat something that I really, really enjoy, whether that be, you know, a WW snack, the sweet or savory. I love so many of them, and they really, really help. But, you know, I can still have my chocolate orange or my mini eggs. It's just a little bit here and there, but you get that taste of what people would still say is real chocolate. And, you know, I don't tire of telling people that they can still have their Cadbury's, or, you know, whatever the brands are, wherever in the world, you can have that real chocolate. You don't have to, you know, refrain. It's just the smaller amount of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the funny thing is when you really start digging into somebody's mindset, then you can quickly get to the point to where you can say yes, you can have that, you have it, and then you make it work in your day, and you go through the whole day and you eat extra zeros and that kind of stuff. So you have accomplished this whole day, and you know the sweet spot is calling it a blue dot on there. If you get that, you get your kind of reward, your visual
Yeah,
reward for your day. So if you're able to do that, then what the next step is for you to then be able to assess of whether or not that sacrifice was worth it. You
yeah,
know, and you're like, well, I actually did that, and the egg was good, but man, I kind of had to like do a lot of work to do that. So then you're actually putting the value into yourself of whether or not that thing that we gave all the power to is worth it. And I feel like that, you know, if you really feel like eating a Cadbury egg 7 days a week is worth it, then you can make that work. But I
yeah,
also feel like that after a while you're gonna devalue that thing that we put up on a pedestal, and that's one, you know, healthy thing that I feel like WW has been able to help me do, is to bring things down back into a reasonable value. There are so many great things that are not unhealthy that are really really good, and I can put that value in those. And there are still always going to be those things that are probably a little more higher in points, that occasionally we want those, but I've so found now that my long running healthy habits really really have to move the needle big time for me to want to give up and say I'm going to eat unhealthy because of that, because it just is not worth it, you know.
yeah,
And living in that moment and being happy with that choice is
yeah.
not going and saying, well, I have to live on restriction. It is not restriction if you set that value.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, the difference if I look back is that, you know, say a packet of mini eggs, I would happily devour that, you know, every day. Now it's one small egg out of that packet. That packet can last me 2 weeks. So it's
Mm,
enjoying it in moderation. And that means I look forward to it, rather than, like you said, if I was to eat that whole packet every day, it wouldn't be enjoyable anymore. It would
yeah,
just be a thing I do. So it's that always thinking about the values of things. WW make it so easy. Everything that you eat or drink has a value. So you
yeah,
decide which one you want. Do you want that gin on a Saturday night, or do you want the chocolate? Like, make the
yeah,
decision, whichever works for you. If you then decide, actually, I'm just going to have fruit instead, those points can roll over to another day. So
yeah.
it's making those decisions at different times of day, different days of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. It's totally empowering for you to be able to actually kind of get off of the couch of your mind and actually be engaged and bring those things back to the forefront and do the mental assessment. And when you do that, then you are the side product of that is you are taking the power back from things that we put up on a pedestal, things in our life. And a lot of those can be situations, they can be relationships, they can be anything that you can name that would drive you away from a healthy habit. But when you empower it, then you're diffusing all those situations that cause us to slowly become even more and more unhealthy. And it brings us back into that place. So I want to jump and kind of say, what has it meant for you over the last like 6 months? Now, I know that the world was not planning on giving you a pandemic, but you became a dadgum WW coach and then the world changed. But and you went through all this training. What did it mean for you to say, hey, I want to apply and be an employee of this great company and share my story a little bit, but also learn how to teach people to find this thing within themselves?
Yeah, so I guess it was again on the same lines as when I started doing the Instagram account, was that I was inspired by a number of coaches. I didn't go to the same workshop every week because of my work meant I was all over the place. So that was the great thing, is that I could dip and go when it suited me, and that's the great flexibility again. So I'd met all these coaches, and I thought, gosh, I'd love to give something back in the same way that I've been supported by them. So it was just kind of thinking, okay, I want to do this. I want to support these people. And I suppose, for over a year, I was essentially coaching and supporting people online on Instagram. And I would give the time when people ask me questions about where to start and what to do and what do I think. And so I thought, actually, I'd love to do that in real life. So yeah, then went through a few months of training, and just loved all of it because I'd learned a lot of it myself. So when they were talking about things, it wasn't just learning what the trainers were saying. It was more like, oh yeah, I remember doing that myself. So you can really relate to it. So that then means that you can give a genuine experience to your member because you have been on the journey. You're still on the journey, just like they are. So I do really love it. And despite the fact I only managed to do 3 real physical workshops before everything shut down, it's been so great having the virtual ones, seeing all these smiling faces on the screen, people coming in just to see how others are, and you've still got that online community. It's great. And what I love about it is, although people aren't having their wellness check-in, and some people may just come for that, so they've dropped off for now, the people that do come to the virtual workshops are talking all about non-scale victories, being able to fit into clothes they didn't before, or finding clothes that they used to fit into that are now too big. And it's those visuals that they're coming up with, and I love hearing them. And I think at a time when you can't get on the WW scales in a workshop, the fact that people are showing up and talking about other things is fantastic, because it shows that really, really is important that it's not just the figure on the scale that measures your success.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's the interesting part about, being successful on WW, and then, a lot of people say, well, you should become a coach or whatever, you've kind of got this figured out, and then you do it, and then you realize that being a coach has really very little about me. It is very, very much about me being able to help you dig and find that spot within you. And it really, being a coach has really helped me open up my own self to do a lot more self-discovery and figure out how I did this myself, but in a way that I can draw it out of them without just spitting out a bunch of information and stuff. Because if information was the key, then you could just get on YouTube and finish your study and you'd be done. But no, it is about self-discovery. Along the way, we all kind of do that on ourselves, and we do it in the meeting room. We do it in virtual rooms now. We do it with Instagram people and that kind of stuff. That self-discovery, opening up and unlocking that part of ourselves is so critical for people to have success, because like I said earlier, like being overweight is a symptom of what's going on. And when you start to dig into connecting those emotions of our one side of our brain and the logic and memories of another side of brain, that integration brings us back to a healthy place, to one where we're able to reconcile that we had a misplace or a misstep in our past. We're going to fix that with healthy habits, and we're going to go forward, and we're not going to hold that against us, and we're going to live strong in the future. So how do you project as you go forward? Like, what's the next step for you, and what does it mean? Like, I'm always kind of curious about, as people learn to like tell their story, especially on Instagram, it's really easy to hit the story button. Whatever's going on in your life, it could be a minute micro moment, or you could do a post that is very like, this last 6 months has been this in me. You can do larger scale, that kind of stuff. What has it meant for you to be able to tell your story kind of online and that kind of stuff? And then after that, I kind of really want to know has that brought you joy, and where along the way as that joy kind of came back into your life, did you realize that goal of whatever it was not the end nor the beginning of that joy? That joy had to carry us through. I feel like it's really, really crucial for people to understand that even though they might not be able to see the finish line, the goals that they have for themselves may be so far ahead that you have to find something that brings you happiness and joy to keep your life moving forward. What was that for you?
Oh, good question. So I think, you know, I'd be lying if I said going to the scales on a weekly basis and seeing a loss wasn't a big joy, because you know that then what you're doing is working, and you're seeing that figure go down, which is ultimately where you wanted to be when you started out on this journey. But I think I underestimated at the beginning the other things that would happen along the way. So like I said, the physical things going down in dress sizes, feeling like I could go up flights of stairs without getting out of breath,
Yeah.
feeling more confident in myself to, um, you know, put myself forward for things. So being a coach or getting a new job or things that I wouldn't have usually done because I wasn't happy with myself. So the biggest joy, I suppose, is having that happiness that has come from the healthier I've got has made me happier. And it's not just about you know, how I feel I look, or it's more just about is my mindset has totally changed, because my relationship with food has totally changed. I'm so much of a, you know, it's much healthier. And I think all of that is brings me joy. And as a reflection then on other people, the way I behave with other people, the way I treat myself is much better. And
Mm.
I think I used to just speak to myself really horribly, and I would never speak to my friends like that. So you need to remember to speak to yourself like you would speak to someone else, because you know you don't deserve that.
Yeah.
So I think the joy has from almost like refinding myself, and I feel so much happier going into my 30s than I did going into my 20s, because I've almost like done myself a real favor in becoming healthier and happier as a result. And I think that can then reflect on other people, and you can then help others really. And like you said, people have to work it out for themselves. No one can tell them, but if you can give them a story that can inspire them to start their day one, then that's great.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's so cool that as you walk out this journey every day, you realize that I'm further from where I used to be and where I didn't like it than I ever thought I could be. So almost like every day is day one. You know, you don't have to say that, well, it's taken me this many days to get here, because you've given yourself that grace of the past and saying, well, I'm gonna continue to do this, and it is a sustainable life. And the fact that you never have to have the thought process that, well, I'm successful because I ate lots of greens and lots of eggs and I didn't eat pizza or I didn't eat lots of pasta. That's not a key to the success. You never have to say those words. There's no limits and there's no restrictions. It's just healthy living and healthy choices. And it's so fun that after a while, like I don't know if you're like me at all, but like I've done like these mindset things where I try to like really stretch myself and see what I can do and what I can accomplish and how strong my will is and that kind of thing. And not because I want to be proud or show, like selfish things and that kind of stuff. I want to say, if I can do this, then I know I can do mentally hard things. Then that is empowering me for those moments when I'm doing a physical hard thing, when I'm trying to do my 20,000 pound press. And what I'm talking about is like I'll go into the gym and my goal is in any way to move 20,000 pounds. How fast can I move 20,000 pounds? And that, you can divide that out. That is like 200, 100 pound reps or whatever, like I want to move 20,000 pounds. And so I do lots of 25 pound curls in each hand. So that's 50, 100, 150, 200, so like it's a fun little game that I play with myself.
Yeah,
2 years ago,
it's all
I
in
would
your
have
head.
never done it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I also realized that 2 years ago, I would have said that I will kill you if you tell me I can't have pizza. So that kind of thing, it was something it meant something to me. So I'm always just curious of like, as you've gone in this, like, what are some of the things, maybe some of the misconceptions that WW has allowed you to like, it's like I had a poor idea of what this is. It's actually this. Is there some of that for you?
Yeah, I think misconception is you have to be a certain size to be on WW. Like, you have to be a certain size or an age to start. You do it for yourself. So whatever your starting size is personal to you, and you know, you can start your journey wherever. If you just need that kind of guidance and support along the way, then WW is the way to do it. So you don't have to be a certain person to start in the first place. And I did have that misconception. I also thought that it would be a diet. But as I said before, it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle change, and you've got to just go with that, and you'll learn that very quickly. And we've talked about the fact that I thought I wouldn't be able to eat my favorite things anymore because they wouldn't be good for this diet. But actually, it's a lifestyle change where you can eat what you want within these boundaries. And it's just given me so many the sustainability is the key, I think, and that's clear very on, that if you put your time and effort into it, you will reap the rewards that are sustainable for the long term. So it's that back to that day one day thing. I always think, years ago, I would have always said, I'll start on Monday, I'll start next month, I'll start next year. So it was always that, one day I'll start, one day I'll address my unhealthiness. Whereas now I decided my day one. And like you said, they may happen all the time. You're going to have those refreshes. You're going to start again, because that is life. Life will happen, and then you will refresh and have that day one. But it's your control, that you're thinking, right, today is a new day. Every day when you wake up, you start with a clean slate. Whatever happened yesterday doesn't dictate today. So you start that day again. And I love that, because then you can have those weekends off where you just enjoy yourself, and then you go for it again. But because you've already been on the journey, you've picked up those healthy habits, it's easy to start again, and just, new slate, new start, and you get that renewed momentum and motivation to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. Even from a place of success, you can still have those thoughts where, like, oh man, I just don't feel it today. Or maybe you look at yourself in a certain way. I know for me, one of the big kind of triggers is I used to be real big, and I used to work in the funeral home industry, and I had to wear a suit to work every day. You dress up nice to attend people's funerals. So anytime I have to actually put on a suit and coat, I always feel like it's so like tight and it's on me, and it never fits right. Even if it technically is like measured out to fit right, it just doesn't fit right. But anyway, today I put on my suit coat and I took a picture and I posted my picture for my post this morning, and I didn't even have those thoughts at all. That thought did not cross my mind at all. The suit fit fine. And I think that there are days when we just don't feel it, and there's going to be days when you do feel it, and that's really attached to so many different things that aren't a number on a scale. They aren't the contents of a plate. They aren't the how many times you've been to the gym that week. It's really about that whole sustainable thing of like, this is how I care for myself, and that when it's all together, it will never fail. You can always pick one apart, like the scale's not moving, but I'm eating right. I'm eating right, but the scale is, I'm losing. What's going on? Or I'm eating bad and the scale's gaining, and I'm not working out, or I'm working out too much. All the things, those moving parts, but when it all goes together, it really becomes this well-rounded, sustainable thing that really, for me, the word that I always love is it just gives you a great perspective of everything. It's like you're being able to live life from the top and see and assess, rather than live life where you're trying to dig up and it's hard to, climb all the time. When you live in a great area of perspective, when you're healthy, top to bottom, not living too low, not living too high, like kind of that balance kind of mentality, it really helps. It really helps. And I think a lot of that is the mental work we have to do. And when we start to do that, it allows us to reel back in, and then activity makes sense, even though you might not be in love with activity. And eating right makes sense, even though you love to eat a little more or you like to eat different. Like, it just makes sense to like reel that stuff in. So I always like to end this with any questions that you might have for me. What would you like to ask WW Phil?
Well, WW Phil, I think if you could sum up your WW journey in one word, what would it be?
I would say purpose. And that one word is, I feel like that I've had a really, really blessed life. I've great parents, friends, family, wife, all the things. I put myself on the sideline for a long time because of the way I thought about myself and the way I perceived myself, my ability, my voice, the my purpose. And so when I began to find that purpose in what I was intended to do and use that for good, then everything else in life started to make sense. Some of it started to happen quickly, some of it was slowly, but as that kind of really started to round out, then I realized that I just need to be me, and that was enough. I don't have to be some fake version of me. I'm not an internet version of me. If you meet me in real life, I'm the exact same person, and that is enough. So I don't have to try to grow some massive number of followers, or I don't have to, start a business. I just get to be me, and that is enough. And then everything else, from work, from family, to WW, to lifestyle, will all just fall into its natural place. And I think that has allowed me to not try so hard, to like just to let it just happen a little bit more naturally. And in that aspect, it's peaceful. And I feel like that I did a lot of comparison with my life to other people, even good people, good friends and family members and that kind of stuff. And when you have your own purpose, you don't have to draw your authenticity from anyone else. It's yours, and you get to do that and be who you're intended to be. And that's one thing that WW really, really does, is it allows you to dig deep and find. And I know, like, for us over here in the United States, with Oprah being our big ambassador, and watching her all these years, like, one of her main things is always just helping people find that inner spark, that when you turn that on, it lights up who you are. And that's all we need to be. We don't have to try to exceed that. Just be who we are.
Yeah, I love that. Really, it really resonates. So yeah, great. Thanks, Phil.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for coming on with me. This has been such a blessing, and I'm inspired by you so greatly. And I will send as many people your way as I can when I tell them to follow you. I love your Instagram name. If you want to tell us real quick, where did Healthy Hoots come from?
Well, it started Weight Watchers Hoots back before the rebrand, and it was more about my mantra was that, I'm finding this healthy balance of activity, food, but having a hoot, enjoying myself along the way.
So like that's like a hoot for y'all is like going out having a party?
Yes, like having fun, having a
Yeah.
hoot, enjoying yourself. So it's really important to me that this would fit in with my lifestyle and my sociable lifestyle. So yeah, trying to be a healthy hoot.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on with me, and it's been a blessing to have you. And you are an amazing ambassador and a representation of WW. So thank you so much.
Thanks,
Hey,
Phil.
family, what a great interview. Rachel is such an inspiration. If you want to follow her, you can find her on the gram at Healthy Hoops. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the WW Phil podcast, your guide to feel good. This podcast is not sponsored or affiliated with WW or any other brand. All statements and opinions on this show are those of Phil alone. Those who follow the WW program can expect to lose 1 to 2 pounds per week. Phil has lost weight on a prior program and continues to use WW.